So hello everyone, welcome to the Policy Wall of ORF Middle East. I'm Eszter Karacsony, Associate Fellow in Geopolitics at ORF Middle East, and I'm delighted to be joined by His Excellency Luigi Di Maio, the European Union Special Representative for the Gulf.
Pleasure to be with you.
Mr. Di Maio, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Since June 2023, you've been serving as the EU's first ever special representative for the region, with a mandate to further develop and enhance a comprehensive and more strategic EU partnership with the Gulf states. Engaging in trans-regional dialogues and fostering international partnerships are diplomatic tasks that are not new to you, if I may say so. You have gained experience in these domains by serving as Italy's Minister of Foreign Affairs and Minister of Economic Development and Trade, for instance. Thus, drawing on your foreign policy expertise and experience, I would suggest starting our conversation by analyzing the evolution of the EU-Gulf relations and understanding its key driving factors, with a particular focus on the past 3 years, a period during which the geopolitical and the geoeconomic importance of the Gulf region has been increasingly recognized by the European Union and translated into different cooperation formats and initiatives. The creation of your position is in itself telling of the region's growing significance for the EU. Thus, considering this evolution, could you please elaborate on the diverse regional and international factors that have led to this enhanced and new partnership dynamic?
Oh, thank you very much again for your invitation. Thank you very much for this question. We would need 2-3 hours for answer this question, but I will try to be brief. Trying to explain why was so needed this partnership at the beginning of 2022, before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We started to, as European member states, I was still foreign minister at the time, to try to shape a new strategy to the so-called Gulf region, in particular with the focus on the GCC. We are not new in terms of partnerships with the Gulf countries, with the GCC. In 1988, we signed the first association agreement with the GCC, but was not implemented at the level that we deserve, at the level of this partnership deserves. And this is why at the beginning of 2022, as member states, we approved working for 1 year. So the entire 2021 was the year when we work on this new strategy, following 5 pillars. That is the answer to your question. This strategy has as pillar number 1, trade and economy. Second, energy, in particular renewables, because the fossil fuels is something that is mainly on our member states, not on the European Union as institution. And third, people to people. Fourth, regional security. Fifth, partnerships between the institutions. So these 5 pillars are at the core of our new strategy that was not a joint strategy with the GCC, but they were consulted deeply before publishing our one. Then I have to say that, as usual, you collect a strategy on the paper, but then you need an implementator for making it in the reality. And for this reason, they appointed me. And my role is exactly to implement the strategy along these 5 pillars. But let me say something. In terms of engagements, we were at a very low level. Our leaders, since 1988, never had a summit. Our foreign ministers never met annually. Our senior officials never discussed about security and defense. Our business communities never had a chamber of commerce, never had an investment forum, and never had an annual business forum. In 2 years, thanks to the incredible work of the European Commission, of the EAS, of our delegations, that would be the embassies on the ground in Saudi, in Kuwait, in Qatar, and in Emirates, we have done a huge piece of work in terms of creating these channels. We had the first ever summit of our leaders on October 24 in Brussels. The second one will be in Saudi Arabia. Now our ministers are meeting annually, like the most recent joint council in Kuwait City a few days ago. Then now we have the first ever Chamber of Commerce, European Chamber of Commerce in Riyadh for the entire Gulf, but we are going to open in Bahrain. We have the annual business forum. The next one will be on November 5th in Kuwait. And we have even something very important, that is the structured security dialogue between our senior officials. And this is very important to say, because both regions, Europe and the Gulf, are in a way reshaping their strategic autonomy idea, their strategic autonomy strategy, let's say that, if it's possible. And we are working both in parallel and not together on the same priorities in terms of defense and security. And why not to join, if where is possible, on for instance, on cybersecurity or maritime security? Why not to have a joint strategy? And this is what we are doing now.
So indeed, we can see that it's a very broad and, so to say, all-encompassing strategy and work that you're implementing. We can clearly see also that there's a momentum to cooperate. And I would like to continue our discussion by mentioning another potential historical milestone in the bi-regional relations. In October 2024, the EU and the GCC expressed their interest to move their discussions forward regarding a region-to-region free trade agreement. Negotiations between the two parties had already been conducted in the past, but were suspended in 2008 due to the lack of a mutually acceptable deal at that time. So I was wondering, has something changed since 2008? And if so, what might that be in terms of the parties' strategic interests, the international environment in which they operate, and also the FTA's potential scope?
Let's start saying that when I joined this role, I found on my desk this huge problem, this huge issue. This negotiation, even if received an halt on 2008, is 37 years old. So is absolutely older than you and is just 2 years younger than me. It's something crazy for a negotiation. But I have to say that as of 2008, the negotiation was totally stuck and I would say closed and not reopened. As of 2024, with the GCC, in particular with the brilliant work we are doing together with the Secretary General of the GCC, Jassim Abudai, we are trying to revive this body. That it's something very important for the two regions, that in the meanwhile already our companies, our member states, were dealing and they dealt about a lot of issues in the trade and investment field. But as you know better than me, the European Commission has the exclusive competence of negotiating a free trade agreement. And for this reason, we are trying to revive it. At this stage, we need flexibility from both sides, because if the free trade agreement remains like that at this stage of the negotiation, the 80% of the entire volume of trade will be out of the free trade agreement. So we are saying that the 80% of the products that we exchange will be out of the free trade agreement. And it is honestly not useful and not mutually, not a mutual interest. This is why we are trying to revive, but even to adjust the trajectory. I'm optimistic on the medium term, but on the short term, I have to say that the European Union even started to implement a sort of parallel strategy, that is the bilateral free trade agreements. We just launched a few months ago the EU-European United Arab Emirates free trade agreement negotiation. Is a CEPA, a comprehensive partnership agreement, enhanced partnership agreement. But I have to say that it's more a free trade agreement, and we are working on liberalization of the market. and the negotiation is going well. So we consider the parallel tracks as a building block to the regional one. And third, and then I stop here, even the so-called bilateral strategic partnership agreements between EU Commission and each member state of GCC would be very important, because in that tool, there is even a part dedicated to investments and trade, except the liberalization. That is a item of the free trade agreements.
Thank you so much. You naturally covered two of my follow-up questions, one of which was indeed, because this is a question that we often hear, can the EU-UAE FTA be exclusive of an EU-GCC one? But if I understand correctly, it's not the case. And as you mentioned, it might be a building block of a broader regional one at some point, and the two can be aligned to this regard. I would like to build on the strategic partnership agreements that you mentioned. And of course, you already touched upon one segment of it, which is investment. But I was wondering to what extent these bilateral strategic partnership agreements that the EU decided to negotiate with each GCC country separately and individually, what is different in terms of their scope compared to, for instance, an FTA? And to what extent does it fit within the existent cooperation framework and structure that the EU and the GCC countries already have?
Let's start saying that are two different tools. The liberalization of the markets, that is the interest of both markets now, the GCC market and the European market, single market, it's something that can be achieved as goal only with the free trade agreement. So there is no way of liberalizing the market with the strategic partnership agreement. The strategic partnership agreements is something wider and broader in terms of strategic partnership indeed. What does it mean? This tool, that is a bilateral tool, has been conceived for, first of all, having a tailor-made partnership with each one of the member states of the GCC by the EU side. So we offer to the GCC countries strategic partnerships that has three legs. The first is political, so to frame in a way the political partnership at multilateral and regional level and bilateral level. Second leg is trade and investments, except the liberalization. So it might be technologies, for instance, AI. It might be to ease the procurement field, to simplify the bureaucracy, to deal on energy, to deal on many other fields like security, defense, co-investing in third countries like African countries, and so on. And the third one is sustainability, and everything it comes to is linked to sustainability. So this is the strategic partnership agreement. We can proceed, of course, in parallel with the free trade agreements we are negotiating. But let me say something. The more the free trade agreement, it sticks to the market liberalization, the better and the faster it will be the negotiation. All the rest is something that is properly in the strategic partnership agreement. I know that now we have, not only as European Union, at global level, that is this trend of negotiating free trade agreements that are baskets where you put everything, all the items inside, because it's even a matter of leverage. No, you say, okay, we have the leverage now. Let's negotiate the free trade agreement. You give me something in another field, and we put in the same agreement. But it's too complex, too complicated, and indeed, then the negotiation is delayed.
Thank you. It is very clear, and now we can see how the two agreements are complementary to some extent and can bolster one another also, but also be elaborated on separate tracks. I was also wondering how another initiative might fit within this whole setup of cooperation agreements, strategic partnerships, trade liberalization that is ongoing at the moment. This is the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor project, to which two Gulf states, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, are signatory countries, as well as the European Union itself. Can the announced free trade agreement and the strategic partnership agreements, according to you, bolster IMEC's implementation that is really about connectivity and trade across continents and regions?
IMEC, first of all, in my opinion, is the clear will of India, of some countries of the Gulf, Europe and US, of boosting the trade, the energy, and the data cooperation. This is a very important statement of the intention by all the parties of simplifying, building infrastructures, developing new technologies together in three fields: goods, data, and energy. So the IMEC, unfortunately, was not very lucky in terms of timing, because it was signed just less than few months before the October 7 event. And as you know, this route goes via the port of Haifa in Israel, that at the time when October 7 came was even under the rockets of Hezbollah from Lebanon. Then there was the Israel-Hezbollah war. So, you know, there are even, in my opinion, political issues that came into the development of a pure trade and connectivity project. But I have to say, as European Union, as India, and even as Gulf countries, all together, we are trying to keep ready this tool for the time when the peace in Gaza will come. Let's hope very soon. And I have to say that we can speak about IMEC, but we can even consider IMEC in a wider sense, that is the connectivity interest of the regions. The Indian Ocean region, let's say that, the Gulf region, the European region, together with our allies that is US. In my opinion, we can do a lot on that. We just had the senior officials meeting here in Brussels with the signatories from the European side on IMEC. Probably we will organize soon a senior officials meeting of IMEC for trying to develop project, but the most important interest is from the companies. I'm meeting a lot of companies from India, from Emirates, from Saudi, from Europe. They are in a way already building these corridors. The railways project, for instance, are very interesting. And you will see, but at the end, we will discover that the IMEC is already ongoing. Pieces of IMEC are already ongoing, because the market is boosting this need that is even framed in the MOU signed in New Delhi.
Thank you, sir. And just before we conclude, I would like to build on something that you said, indeed, that it might be a project, a tool that is kept ready for the day after, so to say, period in the region. I was wondering, to what extent can IMEC be seen as a peace project and as a potential reconstruction project in the region?
Yeah.
And how, of course, the EU and, of course, the EU signatory parties and those countries from the GCC who are signatories contribute to this potential peace element of the IMEC project? Honestly,
in the framework of the discussion on the two-state solution, on the peace between Israel and Gaza, but even the peace between a definitive appeasement between Lebanon and Israel, and so on, and Syria and so on, the discussion about peace dividends, it's very present. is very present. And not only about IMEC, I would say about connectivity corridors in general. Because as you know, for instance, some of countries already signed the IMEC. They signed even the development corridor, no? Emirates, Qatar, Iraq, Turkey. So I think that the corridors can play a very important role in the peace dividends dynamic, incentivizing, let's say that, the peace. But with this kind of violence that we are experiencing and the emergency we are experiencing in Gaza, I think that the economic leverage is not enough. As you can see, even with the Trump's plan, the importance is on, and the most important dynamic is on the leverage of a single country like US to influence both sides and to partner with the allies. We just met in Kuwait City as Europeans and Gulf countries, and we declared firmly our support to the President Trump plan, because we know that US has a huge leverage on both sides, on Israel and on the countries from the Arab region, from the Gulf region, or from the Arab countries that are able to influence Hamas and to convince Hamas to stop this war. So now we are still in a political scenario, but of course, on the long term, I think that in order to build a sustainable peace in the Middle East and to build a real equation of security for the Middle East, corridors, connectivities, and even IMEC will be very instrumental.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for being with us here today online. And we look forward to maybe take stock of the advancements in a few months' time related to the IMEC project and, of course, the agreements we just mentioned and the very positive dynamics that we see.
Absolutely. Count on me, and thank you very much again for this invitation and for this chat.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye.